we at HLID see ourselves as one big family, a family that welcomes all, a family that doesn't know any differences based on nationality, race, religion, or whatnot. Our students come from a varied different countries. We have students from Jordan, Palestine. We have students from Syria. We have students from Iraq. We have students from Iraq as well, and Egypt. So they're all welcome. And the only question we ask when we're admitting a new child, a new student, is not whether this child, where does this child come from, or whether this child can afford the care that they're going to receive while they're at HLID. The only question that we ask ourselves is, can we help this child? Can we offer what this child needs? And if the answer is yes, then that child is welcomed, and we rest assured knowing that God will provide everything else that we might need. So talking about HLID, I'm gonna talk about the deaf students themselves, but bearing in mind that I'm talking about that, please bear in mind that we have many other departments. We have the deaf-blind department that's there as well. We have the outreach department. We have the sign and dying department, and there are many other departments. But I want to take you into the lives of the deaf students themselves. For many of these students, they have been brought up in this institute. Since our school offers education from kindergarten to the 12th grade, we have students who have been there since they were 4 years old. And since the deaf students sometimes do not advance in the normal paced time for a child, a child without disability, some of our students stay there till they're about 25 years old. So for some people, this has become their house away from home. This has become their second family. So what we try to bring into all of this is the love of a family, is the care of a family. Our staff in the school, they're really well trained, and they do their best to take the government curriculum that all other students in Jordan take and cater that to the needs of a deaf child. Our classrooms cannot handle more than 7 students in order to be able to give our students the best educational needs that they have. So you need more classes to be able to do that. And now, one of your questions, Susan asked me before our talk started, is about what we're doing during COVID. Sadly, the government program for the deaf students that was prepared for the Corona situation so that they can continue their education from home was not up to our own standards, if I may say that. So our solution was that we're going to create our own program to keep up with our students while they're at home. That meant that for some of these students, they don't have active internet connections while they're at home. But we would not let that be a hindrance in reaching them. So the school took it upon itself to make sure that they all get the internet that they need while they're at home so that they can continue with their education. Now, what distinguishes HLID that was established in 1964 from other institutes, other schools for the deaf, is that since we were established till this day, we are the only institute that provides our students with vocational training and a boarding house. And please allow me to tell you why that is so important. Let's start with the vocational training, which you're seeing some pictures of now. In our vocational training, our aim is that when a student leaves with hopefully a high school diploma, that when they go out of the school, if they don't have the opportunity to finish their education, continue their higher education, that they at least have the skills to be productive members of this society. They've learned different vocations. We teach carpentry, we teach metalwork, we teach mechanical work, we teach pottery, sewing, weaving, ceramic work as well. So all of that offers them an opportunity to learn, figure out what they like, learn the basics in all of them, but then figure out what they like and take, an advanced course in that. And another thing that distinguishes our vocational training from other vocational trainings in Jordan is that the boundaries that have been put this is the boys' vocational training department with carpentry and metalwork and mechanical work, and this is the girls' vocational training department with sewing, pottery, and mosaic and all of that. We don't see that as the case. If you go into our carpentry, you can see the girls working with wood. If you go into the mosaic or the pottery, you can see the boys working with that as well. So we have, put aside these ideas of, gender inequality. Now, moving to our boarding house, the boarding house is so important because it becomes for the students a place where they don't only get their educational school training or educational needs and their vocational needs, but they learn how to be one, how to be a family, how to have discipline, how to live together. And just like in a normal family, the older a student becomes at HLID, the more responsibilities they'll have. So it's normal to see that the older students have responsibilities of care for the younger ones. It's normal to see that students, after they finish a meal, there's a rota for who has the responsibility of going into the kitchen and helping out with the dishes. All of that happens in a loving, caring, family-like system. So there is a rotation so that no one, is taking more turns than anyone else. But of course, we always take into consideration their educational needs. Education always comes first. So for example, if they have schoolwork, then that needs to be done first before they finish the rest of their chores. Putting all that together helps us become the second home for these people. HLID is not based on, living at HLID is not based on discipline. It's not based on just good education. In the boarding house, yes, they have tutors in the afternoon to help them do their studies, but it's all based on the act of love, the great commandment that Jesus gave us. We love each other as one family. That's what distinguishes us from everyone else. Other than having a vocational training, having a boarding house, that's great, but then you can feel the love of one family. And if I may quote Archdeacon Duai in saying, you don't need to know sign language to be able to interact with the deaf. If you know the language of love, that's more than enough to be able to interact with them. I know if those of you who have visited us at HLID know that if I start talking about HLID, I might take the next 4 or 5 hours talking about them. Again, there are many other departments that are doing amazing work that no one else is doing. For example, just naming a few of them, the deafblind department, which is the only one of its kind in the Middle East. They actually have translated the Lorm touch language into Arabic. It did not exist into Arabic before. They've done that work. Talking about the Stride department, which strives into and making deaf education better all around the world. So at the moment they're working, we are the only institute recognized by the Iraqi government to train their schools and centers for the deaf and to how to actually teach deaf students. We have the Dine and Sign department and so many others. Part of the preparation is part of what I already have talked about with the vocational training and the training that they get during the vocational training. For example, our head of the metalwork department, Mr. Hatem, he was one of our students. When he left, he worked for the Jordanian military, actually. And now he's back in the school working and teaching the young ones because he found his passion in that. And we try to instill in them the spirit of, don't let people tell you that because you're deaf, you cannot do it. That's not the case. Deaf people can achieve everything that they set their minds to. And we have wonderful examples of that amongst our staff. For example, the deputy head of the school and the head of the kindergarten, Ms. Fadile, used to be one of our students. She was one of the first deaf students in Jordan to get her high school diploma. She continued to get a diploma, undergrad, and a master's degree. And, we keep telling her that she should actually go and get her doctorate. But she's like, this is enough education. It's my time to give back to the deaf community. So it's just our way of trying to connect to them, trying to give them all their needs to go out there and be productive members of the society, both mentally, physically, and educationally, so that they can achieve what God has called them to be. So in Jordan at the moment, we're actually going through a third spike in numbers. So that's a bit concerning at the moment. We don't know how next week's going to be. We were told that, if numbers continue to rise up, they're going to have to enforce more curfews. Our borders are open, and in Jordan itself, Friday is a complete lockdown, and then we have partial lockdowns during the nights. So, hopefully by summer it'll be back to normal. So the students were back for about a month, but now they're back home with their parents. So
I thought.
we've had them in school in the institute for about 2 months this year. That was basically it. 1 month at the beginning of the school year, and then with the added numbers, they decided to go to offsite learning. And then in February, schools were allowed to reopen. So we had our students on campus for about a month, thanks be to God, with the added restrictions that Archdeacon Luai enforced in the school. Within the entire month, we did not have any COVID cases on campus, so that was great.
Wow.
So we went back to our pre-established off-site learning strategy that HLID has enforced has undertaken.
Right. So your staff is teaching remotely, or they're
our staff are fully on campus. It's just that the students are home.
Got it.
But teachers, staff, everyone else is on campus.